Grandmaster Luke Skywalker became one of the most powerful Force users in galactic history, and the reason his power is insane has almost nothing to do with raw strength. He could redirect AT-AT cannon fire with his lightsaber, duel a resurrected emperor, and fight an ancient being so powerful that the Sith themselves feared her. Yet the galaxy gave him every bloodline advantage, every cosmic excuse, and eventually every opportunity to become another Anakin or another Palpatine. And he kept choosing not to. His story is rooted in the original trilogy, but defined by decades of Legends novels, comics, and reference works that followed. Luke Skywalker grew up on a moisture farm on Tatooine with no Jedi temple, no lightsaber forms, and no ancient archives. Owen and Beru Lars gave him chores, sunburns, and a normal human childhood built on attachment, frustration, and love. In Legends, the Old Order had spent centuries doing the exact opposite. They took Force-sensitive infants from their families, forbade romantic attachment, and trained out every emotion that might lead to the dark side. Luke grew up outside all of that. He never had to unlearn the Old Order's assumptions because he never learned them in the first place. He learned how to fix a vaporator and how to miss his friends. When Obi-Wan Kenobi finally handed Luke a lightsaber, the young Skywalker did not receive the structured training thousands of Jedi younglings had been given. He got a few days on the Falcon with a training remote, a handful of lessons on Dagobah, and then a war. Meanwhile, the Emperor had already set his sights on the boy. Only together, master and apprentice, could they turn him to the dark side. Palpatine expected Luke to become another Vader, a weapon he could aim and control. Both Anakin and Luke eventually stood before the Emperor. In a canon junior novelization of Return of the Jedi, Luke looked at his father's severed mechanical hand, then at his own black-gloved right hand. The same machinery, the same path. He deactivated his lightsaber, turned to the Emperor, and flung it aside. Never the dark side. Anakin, facing the same crossroads years earlier, had chosen fear. Luke chose to throw away his weapon, but throwing the weapon away only worked once. The next fight would demand something harder. Because nobody handed Luke a finished set of rules, he never stopped looking for new ones. His first real duel was against Darth Vader on Cloud City, and he lost badly. The Sith Lords severed his hand and nearly shattered his mind. When Luke returned to face his father aboard the second Death Star, he carried a new weapon he had built himself. He did not try to overpower Vader. He refused to fight until Vader threatened Leia. Even then, when the young Jedi finally attacked, he cut through Vader's guard in seconds and drove his father to the floor. The raw ability was always there. By the second Death Star, Luke controlled when and how he used it. If you want to see more videos like this one, a quick subscribe means you will always be first to know. In Legends, Luke recovered centuries-old Jedi training data from a wrecked vessel on Dathomir and studied it alone, filling gaps no living teacher could. His real breakthroughs came under pressure. During a fight with a human replica droid named Guri on Coruscant, he discovered Force speed mid-combat, not because anyone taught it to him, but because the fight gave him no other choice. The same instinct showed up on a larger scale in the Legends comic Dark Empire. Luke deflected AT-AT cannon fire with his lightsaber, redirected the shots back into the Walker's weapon systems, then used the Force to overload its power grid from the inside. Han Solo, watching from nearby, could barely process what he had just seen. But the raw power of a Walker was nothing next to the woman waiting in the dark. His first encounter with Lumia, the self-proclaimed Dark Lady of the Sith, forced him to confront a weapon he had never trained against. Her light whip, crafted from kyber crystal shards and Mandalorian iron on the ancient Sith world of Ziost, used energized tendrils that could wrap around a lightsaber blade and tear it free. Luke lost that first fight on Kinoween and was captured. He adapted. He studied the weapon's weaknesses, built a red-bladed Shoto, a short lightsaber, and carried it alongside his primary blade. In the rematch, dual blades gave him the control he needed. He subdued Lumia, then shattered her helmet. The face underneath belonged to Shira Bree, a former rebel pilot who had once served alongside Luke in the Alliance. He had believed she was dead. A woman he had known as a fellow soldier had become the Dark Lady of the Sith, and until that moment, he had no idea he had been fighting her. Years later, during a pursuit over Coruscant, the Grand Master leaped from a moving speeder onto a fleeing X-Wing in midair. He used the Force to pin himself to the fuselage against wind that should have ripped him free. He then subdued a mentally compromised Jedi Knight with the butt of his lightsaber, using just enough power to stop the man without killing him. To Jaina Solo, one of the Order's best, her uncle was still the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy, and everyone should assume he had a plan. But the enemy he had never met would be worse than the one he had known all along. Abeloth was an ancient being locked inside a black hole prison for 25,000 years, so powerful that her very existence warped the force around her. Her power burned like the light of a nova. The Sith feared her. The Jedi could barely comprehend what she was. In the final confrontation, the Grand Master had to fight her on two planes at once, physically in the real world and simultaneously in the realm beyond shadows, a dimension reached through deep force meditation. To win, he did something no Jedi would have considered. He fought alongside the essence of a Sith Lord. Because Abeloth was powerful enough that even enemies had to cooperate or die separately, Luke held his ground on both fronts and was central to driving her back. In Jedi Search, Luke stood before the New Republic Senate and made his case. He did not promise safety. His own father had been a Jedi student who fell. He himself had touched the dark side and come through stronger, warier of its powers than ever before. The choice for the Senate was not between safe Jedi and dangerous ones. The choice was between training new Jedi and having no Jedi at all. The Senate gave him a standing ovation. Being that powerful was one test. Building something with power was another. The academy he founded on Yavin 4 broke every rule the Old Order had in force for 1,000 years. Where Jedi of the Old Republic had been taken as infants and forbidden to marry, Luke welcomed anyone who showed force ability, regardless of age, background, or emotional history. He did not discourage marriage or family. He built the academy as a place for discussion rather than rigid rules. Trainees were asked to arrive at group conclusions instead of following instructions from above. His founding class included survivors, mystics, hermits, and people the Old Order would have rejected outright. He even accepted Brachus, who later turned out to be an Imperial spy. Luke needed people willing to try, not people who fit a template. Kip Duron was a teenager who had spent years in the spice mines of Kessel, carrying raw power and deep anger in equal measure. Mara Jade had served as the Emperor's hand, trained to kill Jedi, not join them. Luke welcomed them all. The first year nearly killed him. Exar Kun Spirit, an ancient Sith Lord hidden for 4,000 years in the Masasi temples on Yavin 4, corrupted Kip and killed another student named Gantoris. The Sith Lord drained Luke's life energy until his body hovered between life and death. His students saved him. Working together, pooling their abilities, they drove the ancient spirit back. His 3-year-old nephew and niece, Jason and Jaina Solo, gave the other students the enemy's name. The academy survived and grew stronger. The Old Order would have expelled half those students before they started. Luke's academy nearly died because of them, and then it survived because of them. After the Yuuzhan Vong War, Luke also addressed the divisions inside his own order. Kip Duron had led a faction of Jedi who believed Luke's approach was too passive. The two never fully resolved their differences, but they worked together against the invaders. Luke separated the Jedi from political control entirely. The Master's Council dismissed all politicians and relocated to Ossus. But surviving Exar Kun was nothing compared to what the Emperor still had waiting. Roughly 6 years after Endor, Luke discovered that Emperor Palpatine had survived by transferring his spirit into a clone body in the hidden world of Biss. The reborn Emperor spoke of eternal life as a bargain worth the price. The pain of dying, the horror of the transition, all small next to what waited on the other side. He offered Luke the same deal he once offered Anakin: service in exchange for power and dark side discipline. Luke knelt and accepted, claiming his father's destiny as his own. He did not kneel for the same reasons his father did. He believed he could destroy the dark side from within. He wanted to understand why Anakin fell, what the dark side actually offered, and whether it could be beaten on its own terms. It was arrogant, reckless, and it nearly consumed him. The Emperor's influence buried the Jedi under layers of dark side manipulation until he could barely remember his own name. Inside his mind, whispers pressed in. He was nothing, nameless, property of the dark side. The one thing Palpatine needed to erase was the one thing Luke could not afford to lose: his name. Leia saved him by using the Force to break through the Emperor's mental hold. calling out to her brother by name and reaching for the man buried underneath. The very thing Palpatine had tried to strip away was the weapon his sister used to pull Luke back. He broke free. He had made a mistake. He had believed he had to save the galaxy alone, and the Jedi path was never meant to be walked in isolation. He had found all the dark things their father knew so well, the ability to control others, to destroy others if he chose. He understood Force lightning, Force storms, spirit transfer, and the deeper mechanics of dark side power. Rather than hiding what had happened, he used the knowledge. During his duel with the reborn Palpatine, Luke moved so fast that Leia could feel the waves of power washing over her, the dark side and the light was winning. The Jedi severed the Emperor's hand and demanded his surrender. The Emperor's response revealed how deeply he feared what Luke had become. In the Emperor's mind, only one motive made sense. Luke wanted the throne for himself. Luke was not trying to rule anything. When the Emperor instead cast a Force storm at the Rebel fleet, Luke and Leia struck Palpatine with a wave of light side energy that broke his control. The Force storm reversed course and consumed the eclipse. No single Jedi could conquer the galaxy alone. Together, brother and sister had been a Jedi fire that outshone the Emperor's evil. Surviving the dark side proved Luke could endure it. Refusing it, when nothing forced him to, was a different test entirely. The former Jedi Vergier had already challenged everything Luke thought he knew. The Yuuzhan Vong, extragalactic invaders who wage war on the entire galaxy, seemed to exist completely outside the Force. Vergier pushed back on the whole framing. The invisibility was not a failure of the Force. It was a failure of how the Jedi perceived it. They'd been looking through too narrow a lens, focusing on what she called the unifying Force while missing its full reach. After the war, Luke gathered his Jedi on Zonama Sikat. He had come to believe the Force was more all-embracing than the Old Order had recognized. Anger by itself was not of the dark side, not unless it was joined with a desire to control others. His son Ben, who had watched his father survive more than most Jedi could imagine, saw a man past the reach of the dark. No power in the galaxy could draw Luke into darkness now. Ben's belief was tested almost immediately. On Abeloth's home world, Luke refused the font of power, a dark side source so ancient it felt as old as the galaxy itself. His guides from Sinkhole Station had urged him to drink, promising he would have the power to achieve anything. He turned it down because he did not trust the source, and because he had already seen what unchecked power did to people who believed they could handle it. When Sith High Lord Talon asked why he walked away, Luke gave him the plain answer. Talon recognized that forcing a confrontation with Luke would cost him more than he stood to gain. Rather than press the issue, the Sith cooperated. Luke had refused the drink, refused the fight, and still walked away with the upper hand. Shortly after Endor, Holo Thriller producers were already making up stories about the young Jedi. The villain Shadow Spawn produced a propaganda film casting Luke as Palpatine's rightful heir. Imperial soldiers fought and died for a version of Luke Skywalker that never existed. His own officers were so impressed by his reputation that they would not argue with him, which made command harder, not easier. At 24, the youngest general in the New Republic recognized that his greatest and most terrible ally was making one small decision that killed thousands of people. The moral cost was too high. The young Jedi resigned his commission and walked away, remembering Obi-Wan's belief that Jedi were keepers of the peace, not soldiers. But refusing power was one kind of surrender. The hardest one still waited, and it involved his own family. Leaving power behind did not protect him from what it had cost. To Leia, there was a haunted look in her brother's eyes. Something vital had been burned away by the personal hells he had survived. Trying to kill his own father, dueling a clone of himself, and serving the dark side under the Emperor. If that was the price of being a powerful Jedi, Leia was not sure she wanted it. During the Legacy of the Force crisis, Luke's nephew Jacen Solo fell to the dark side, became Darth Caedus, and murdered Luke's wife Mara Jade Skywalker. Luke abandoned patience, confronted and killed the primary suspect Lumia, then learned her confirmed movements made it impossible for her to have been the killer. He had killed the wrong person, and the possibility of her innocence divided the Jedi Order. The Grand Master wanted vengeance against Caedus. He had been looking forward to running his nephew down, and he did not pretend otherwise. Every future he saw through the Force that began with him hunting Caedus ended in darkness. Without exception, Jedi Master Saba Sabatine saw the taint on him from the killing of Lumia in vengeance, and she did not soften it. Luke thanked her for the honesty and stepped aside. He let Jaina Solo take the mission, even though he was the only one who could guarantee success. Jaina was a Jedi Knight, not a Master. She was good, but she was not Luke. To Han Solo, it was Luke's worst idea since apprenticing himself to Palpatine's clone. Luke did not budge. He served as a distraction, a decoy, and a shield, while refusing to take the fight he wanted most. Then the law came for him, and the Grand Master did not fight back. During Fate of the Jedi, Chief of State Dala charged Luke with failing to prevent Jacen Solo's fall to the dark side. He accepted exile from the very order he founded. He did not use the Force to fight the charges or influence the court. If Jedi escaped legal consequences through the Force, his students would learn they were above the law. He removed his robes, stepped down, and left Coruscant with his son Ben at his side. One final test remained, and it would ask whether he could fail and still remain Luke. In canon, that same question came for him from a different direction. Years after rebuilding the Jedi, he sensed the dark side growing in his nephew Ben Solo. For one brief moment, he ignited his lightsaber over the sleeping boy before stopping himself. The act lasted seconds, but the damage was permanent. Ben Solo fell, became Kylo Ren, and destroyed everything the Grand Master had built. Luke exiled himself to Act 2, convinced the Jedi had to end. Yet his final act repeated the same choice he had made from the very beginning. He returned not with a fleet or a weapon, but with an image of himself the Force carried across the galaxy. He faced down the First Order without throwing a single blow, gave the Resistance time to escape, and became one with the Force. Even in failure, at the last moment, he still chose protection over destruction and sacrifice over control. His most important victories never came from using maximum force. They came from refusing to. He could overload a walker's power grid. He could reverse a force storm. He could stand across from a being older than the Sith themselves and hold the line. Yet the moments that made him the Grand Master were the moments he threw the weapon away, walked out of the room, or let someone else take the fight. His own father had carried the same bloodline and the same raw potential, and chose control over trust at every turn. Luke chose the opposite. Where Anakin reached for power, his son learned to let go. Yoda had 900 years of wisdom and still watched the old order collapse. Palpatine controlled every institution in the galaxy and still lost, because he could not imagine someone choosing love over power. Luke outlasted all of them, not because he was stronger, but because he understood that the Force did not flow from him. It passed through him, and his job was to serve everyone it touched. Luke's journey from Tatooine to Grand Master is far longer and stranger than any single video can hold. But the darker cost of becoming that legend, the price paid by the people who loved him most, is a story on its own. So watch this video to find out.